Hey, sorry about that. Hopefully, folks are going to jump on quickly. Hi, can you hear me? Testing one, two, test one, two. We had 15 people in the room. Now I'm all by myself. Hey, yeah, we had to restart. Can you hear this okay? Because it's kind of, I had to change the setting. Can you hear? Excellent. Okay, cool. So, well, hopefully everybody's doing well and they're safe, and people, their families, friends are safe. Um, is everybody? Thank you. Yeah, I was setting up. You can't change it on the fly, so I had to start over. Good. Everybody's back. More people back. We had 15. Now we got 56. I don't know if I can handle all this attention and love, except to bounce it back at you. Never let people know you're by yourself. Well, you can see there's 57 people now. You see how fast that happened, and Jeep Gene, you're one of them. Um, so the shirt's getting too big. Either I have to get a bigger shirt or lose some weight. I think a lot of people are gaining weight in this lockdown scenario. Um, I think we fall back on our bad habits sometimes, and one of mine is collecting movies and not watching them, but that's one of my addictions I've admitted to. Hey, Lisa C, I'll go through all the comments periodically as we go through things, but I want to kind of keep a rhythm, so uh, don't feel disrespected. I'm just trying to stay focused because that was one of the notes before, not to do the comments while I'm in the middle of talking. So this, I just wanted to check in with people. Thank you everybody who's been watching the channel and commenting and sharing the content. And if you know, if you don't know, or and checking out the new website, reelblack.com, which was a long time coming. It's a very simple website, but in terms of reinventing the mission and the purpose. I would urge you check that out before uh, the YouTube, investing 100% of my energy into YouTube. We would do monthly screening series in Philadelphia. So prior to the reboot, the website was geared to promoting local events and talking about contests and giveaways. And now, YouTube is primarily the source of information for that. And the website is more my personal filmmaking stuff and what you need to know about me at this time. So, hey, hola, Boston. Yeah, I guess while I'm finding the first batch of movies to talk about, these criterions, uh, let's get a roll call. Let everybody know where you're from, um, either by city or area code. I'm in the 215. Um, but yeah, we got about 50 people in here. So I collect movies, I make movies, I collect movies. Sometimes I buy them. A lot of times movies get sent to me for review. And because I'm not on the radio anymore, I don't have an opportunity to really talk about them. So this is helping me to let go of a lot of karmic debt because I promise these people if they send me a movie, I'll talk about it. And then also, it's good information for you because I know a lot of people, uh, we because they don't have stores anymore where you can just walk in and see things. You don't always know when things become available, and I'm certainly a victim of that. Movies that I thought never came out have been out for months, and I'm chasing them down and stuff like that all the time. So, um, just with that intention in mind, I wanted to share my thoughts about some movies that have been released. Some of these I've talked about in the past. This is just stuff that I have in the house. A lot of things are in storage right now, but these are things, either recent acquisitions, things I was supposed to review, or just things that are on my watching list during this lockdown. So, yeah, thank you for the love. So, Criterion is, since the days of Laserdisc, the premium DVD Blu-ray company. They charge a little more because they put a lot of bonus features on, extra content. They seek out in terms of restoring the films. They put a lot of energy into cleaning up the prints and making them really clean and sort of the definitive versions, let's say, of a movie. So and notoriously, I've always criticized them for not having a lot of black film content. So when I see things, I grab them. That and Criterion has been doing a better job the last year or so of getting more black faces on their covers. So In the Heat of the Night had an anniversary. Now, what disappointed me, they have a lot of great features on In the Heat of the Night. The one thing really wish they made available, they had a reunion at the TCM Film Festival, which I wanted to be at in Los Angeles, and I'm sure it was filmed, but it didn't make it to this. But there's a lot of great stuff on In the Heat of the Night. If you watch the mini lectures, you know this is an important film because this is the first. This has the slap heard around the world. This is the precursor to black exploitation. Sidney Poitier goes Philadelphia actually detective who goes down south to solve a murder, and there's a scene where he gets slapped by sort of like a rich patron. It's a greenhouse scene, and he smacks him back, and that was the first time we saw in film what we wish we could see in real life, which is uh, some level of retribution, for being hit. So Sydney did that first, and then, but Yaphet Kotto would claim he was the first person to kill a white man in a movie and get away with it for liberation of L.B. Jones. That's a whole nother story. Night of the Living Dead, 1969, 68 they claim, but 1968 zombie film. Maybe you want to watch this during the lockdown. Depends on your level of paranoia. But Dwayne Jones is the black lead, and it has a lot of bonus features and stuff. I mean, people who don't know Night of the Living Dead is everywhere, but this is the Criterion edition, and it has great documentary on here about the production company that George Romero had created in Pittsburgh, and where they mined a lot of the talent that ended up in the film. This is one of the first independent feature films to make a big, big splash, um, and it comes out of advertising. This I just got last week. Paris is Burning is on the National Registry of Film, which is a year, every year. I think they pick 25 or 30 movies, the Library of Congress, that they feel are substantial and should be preserved as part of American history. Paris is Burning was chosen, I think, recently in the last 5 years as one of those films, and it just came out on Blu-ray from Criterion, and it's basically the Harlem ball scene. Gay men dressed as women would compete on a weekend basis, and this filmmaker uh, got into the ball scene and captured it. And out of the ball scene, we all know the song Vogue by Madonna. Most of us do at this point. So, um, yeah. Oh, sorry. He's commenting on the post. I'm my prized possessions. I got a signed Blazing Saddles. I don't know if you can see. Mel Brooks signed it for me, and then Coolie High is my Touchstone movie, and then that's the Japanese She's Gotta Have It poster, which Mr. Lee also signed for me. Although you can't really decipher it well because it's in black and the lines and the jigsaw are black, but those I stay with. Oh, Spike Lee's again. All right, this is easier. Um, Bamboozled was also Criterion, and it's signed. If you go to Spike's Joint on the internet, Spike Lee's website, you can get basically all of his films at this point from directly from him, and he will sign them. He will even personalize them. So this came out about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and it costs a little more, and then he charges a ridiculous amount to ship it. But if you're a big fan of Spikes and you want to support him and have a piece of history, he will sign your DVD for you if you buy it from him. You can't send him a DVD and have him sign it, but he will sell you a DVD that's signed to you. So that's information. A lot of people ask about these movies. This I've had for a while, but it is in the house. Basil Dearden's London Underground, and it's a Criterion Eclipse, which means they didn't put the money into the bonus features, but at a lower price you get more movies. So there's four here, British films, and they're all kind of groundbreaking in their own respect. Victim is an early movie with Dirk Bogart, and it has gay theme behind it. League of Gentlemen is a crime caper. A lot of people have gone on to kind of emulate that style of caper comedy, caper film. And then the two movies that have importance for Black history, All Night Long, which people ask for all the time, and they don't know where to find it. This is where you find it. It's part of this box set. All Night Long is got Charles Mingus in it, and Dave Brubeck, Johnny Dankworth, Tubby Hayes. They play the band, and basically it's almost like I think it takes place all in one night, but they're the band. It's the only time you get to see Charles Mingus acting, and they play all the jazz live. For whatever reason, in the early 60s, when Hollywood was making movies dealing with rock and roll and trying to capture that trend, there were a lot of movies that were made overseas that dealt with the jazz scene. So this is considered to a lot of people one of the classic jazz movies from that period, and certainly the only time you're going to see these guys in a film as opposed to like a TV appearance or a concert. And then Sapphire is another film. It's a murder mystery. I don't want to give anything away about this, but a woman's found dead, and there's a little racial twist to it. But it also is important because Earl Cameron, who is still with us, I think he's 100 or 101 years old now. Earl Cameron was the first black actor to become a major movie star in Britain, and he's still living. He's still with us, and this is one of the few movies that's available NTSC Region One, which is viewable in America. But he was sort of compared to Sidney Poitier. A lot of people say he's the Sidney Poitier of Britain, Earl Cameron, and also well, that's a different story. It's a great interview with Earl Cameron online to celebrate his birthday. Nashville, I went back to watch. I don't get it. I do my best. I've tried every 5 years or so. I try to watch Nashville. I get about 10 minutes in. I'm like, I can't. But I bought it used, so no trees were harmed. When We Were Kings. This is a really great thing to have in your collection if you have a Blu-ray player. Not super impressed with the transfer quality of this, but it is Criterion Blu-ray. And what they did is they give you as the bonus, you get Soul Power, which came out years later as a separate movie. But basically, this is the complete capsule of the Ali Foreman Zaire Rumble in the Jungle experience as it exists on film. What they did, they filmed all the events and things surrounding this, ran out of money, and it sat in a vault for over a decade. The original director came, Leon Gass, and worked with another filmmaker and restored it. And years later, we get to see what Muhammad Ali was like in his prime, his black nationalist thought, and just all the events leading up to this great fight, and told from the perspective of fight fans. So it's a piece of history there. And then years later, Soul Power comes out, which was the music festival that was to coincide with the fight. If the fight had not been delayed, Foreman cut his eye. They had to delay the fight for a few weeks. They actually sequestered the fighters so they couldn't leave the country. But they did the music festival earlier, and they turned that into a separate film. And there's been talk that the full James Brown concert, the Staple Singers and the um, Celia Cruz, a lot of those concerts, BB King, have been made available separately, but we've yet to see the full film of James Brown. But Soul Power, When We're Kings, is the Blu-ray. Um, Youngblood, go watch Nashville. Oh, Superone likes Nashville. If you can write a cliff notes for me, I just try. I do my best. I mean, and then now with the attention span the way it is, I can't. It's a lot of time to invest to watch Nashville. And I respect all the people involved, the director and everything. But Detour, one of my favorite movies, one of the movies that turned me on to film noir when I was a kid. It would come on TV in really crappy prints, and that was part of the allure I discovered. Is when you find a movie and you feel like it's on TV and it's scratchy and it's hard to find, it carries its own magic with it, and you say, well, what was that movie? And then where did it come from? And all that stuff. And then it took years, but they restored it. Criterion, bless them. And I never really imagined that this was shot in 35, that there was a clean print. They had to go to like archives all over the planet to find this thing and restore it. And it's a good thing for humanity, but it also takes away the experience because it's like so crisp and so clear. It's almost like you wish the film was better at this point. When it's scratchy and 16 millimeter, you can forgive certain things, but it's not Double Indemnity. I'll put it that way. So if I'd seen it next to Double Indemnity, I'd say this is cheesy. But the fact that I saw it as a scratchy public domain print the first time I encountered it, I loved it. And my thing was they should have put the crappy print on here for the rest of us. They didn't have to do such a great job. Criterion. Do the Right Thing. Blu-ray. I own this in every configuration. I might even have a copy of Do the Right Thing on 8-track. It's just such a key movie to me, and it's still sealed because I've seen it dozens of times. Again, if you go to Spike Lee's website, you can buy signed copies of that. Smithereens, when they had the sale, I picked it up because Susan Seidelman was an NYU alum, and she was right before me. So I like her work. This is her grungy, independent work before she got hired to do Desperately Seeking Susan. And I've seen parts of it, but it's been such a long time. And then it also includes her student films and her short films on it. So I'm a big fan of New York grunge. And then General Idi Amin, Dada, Self Portrait, which is a great movie. Uh, and it's got two interviews with Barbara Schroeder on here talking about how he actually engaged Idi Amin to be the star of this film. It was originally supposed to be like a TV documentary, and it turned into this whole thing. And it's just one of those movies. If once you see it, you will never forget it. Kind of things. General Idi Amin. So those are the criterions. I'll look at some questions before we jump in. Ali Boumaye, absolutely. Youngblood, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's in the other room. I took Youngblood down. I didn't know it was out. So Youngblood with Lawrence Hilton Jacobs came out on Blu-ray from Code Red, I think, or I think Code Red put it out. But the prints on Youngblood, it was never on VHS, but it's always looked good on DVD, and now it looks even better on Blu-ray. Yeah, Mo Better Blues was one of the movies that just came out on Blu-ray for the first time recently. Shaka Lulu. Well, Shaka Lulu is called Mark of the Hawk, and we're trying to get a good print to put on the channel because it's a public domain film, and it's very difficult because there's no value to restore a movie that has been distributed that everybody else can then take your copy and redistribute it because it's not protected. So Mark of the Hawk really deserves to be seen in a better quality, but I'm not holding my breath. But we will get it on the channel as soon as we find a good quality version of it. But Umoja 2. Everybody saying hi. Long Beach, Lima, Ohio. Okay, so Last Angry Man. That's a Columbia picture, and yeah, that's a good one because it's never been on DVD. It's a little hard to get. I mean, there are VHS copies floating around from time to time. You'll see them, and they'll go for like $50 or $60. But it also tends to come on Turner Classic Movies and channels like that very frequently. So if you have your DVR, I would highly recommend you check that one out. But we were talking about. Well, I'll just grab this pile. These are Vinegar Syndromes, and they are a friend of ours. Um, and oh, okay, yeah. So you got a couple things. Sweet Sweetback is on Vinegar Syndrome. I think I talked about this before. Um, it has some bonuses. They had reached out. I mean, they're friends of ours. They'd reached out. We had some content on the channel. That's Melvin Van Peebles stuff, but he didn't seem. He's one of those guys. It's like, look, if they're not paying you, don't do it. So it actually worked into. It benefited us later because now, when they reach out, they actually send money to use content because we actually said no one time. But the first time we worked with Vinegar Syndrome, they for the Welcome Home Brother Charles Blu-ray, and these actually Vinegar Syndrome gives you both Blu-ray and DVD in the same set. So if you don't have a Blu-ray player, you can still experience these movies. So they have a licensing deal with Xenon. I'm starting to lose my voice. And so Welcome Home Brother Charles, the original, when Xenon put it out, it had some wacky ass title. I forget what it was called. And then MMA was Black Sisters Revenge. And somebody help me with the. But Welcome Home Brother Charles is one of the weirdest movies you'll ever see. It's Jamal Fanaka's feature film debut, and he was a UCLA filmmaker graduate, and I think he spent like 10 years in film school so he could have access to equipment. And he made like his first two or three films using UCLA equipment and got them in theaters. And I think eventually they caught wind of what he was doing, and he ended up having to make Penitentiary, which is one of our. Oh, there's Too Sweet on the cover. Oh, Too Sweet is Leon Isaac, but they is it Show Enough or no show? I forget what this guy's called. But the first pressings of these, they give you a little paper slip cover, and then after they run out of the covers, you get it regular. But Penitentiary and Penitentiary 2 with Mr. T, and Penitentiary 3 is yet to make it anywhere. We may get it up on the channel and see what happens. I don't know how long it would stay up if we tried, but for whatever reason, the third piece of the trilogy is not owned by Fanaka, and it's harder to see. Death by Temptation is another Vinegar Syndrome, and this is an interesting film. Actually, very interesting. We just put up Enemy Territory the other day, which was shot by Ernest Dickerson. This is another early film photographed by Ernest Dickerson. He also shot Do the Right Thing. That's sort of his high point before he went on to direct Juice. But Sam Jackson's in it, Kadeem Hardison, and then James Bond III, who was a kid actor. This was his first and only feature film. And then also, if you go to the channel, you can listen to the soundtrack to this, which is from Hush Productions, which was like Freddie Jackson and Melba Moore and those people. So, at the time, 1988, I think it was, Hush Productions was making enough money in music that they decided to finance a film. This was the result. And then, of course, it didn't make any money. So, you know, we get one. We get one shot, just like Eminem. Putney Swope. This one, I think we contributed stuff to. Let me check. Yeah. So Vinegar Syndrome, if you get the Vinegar Syndrome edition of Putney Swope, there's two clips that I shot. One's an interview with Robert Downey in his home, and then the other one is a Q&A that he did in Philadelphia after one of the screenings of Putney Swope. So we were really proud to be a part of this Truth and Soul movie. And Robert Downey is not only a prince, but I consider him a friend. So I was very happy to be connected with that. Um, Ernie Hudson in Penitentiary. I don't have the answer. That's like these are still sealed. It's been decades since I saw Bill Nunn. Yes, Ernie Hudson, maybe. I don't know. It's been decades since I've seen Penitentiary. He's in Dolomite movie. If that's what you're thinking of, the Dolomite Blu-ray is out from Vinegar Syndrome as well, and there's a whole story in there about how Ernie had to move on, and he got his brother to take his place for the rest of the shooting. So it's like basically the character that Ernie Hudson plays. It's played by two different people. We did a whole review series of all the Dolomite movies, and that's on the channel. So I don't want to rehash. Um, Good luck, Miss Wyckoff. This is a movie. If you Charles Woods, he calls this guy one of the bad brothers of black cinema, and it's based on a book, and the book is much more graphic, but it's William Styron, who was a big playwright, did Picnic and a whole bunch of movies in the 50s, books and stuff. His final book was Good Luck, Miss Wyckoff, which was about a basically virginal, like becoming an old maid school teacher who starts a ravish, an affair with the black janitor at the school, and what happens to stigmatize and traumatize her, but also liberate her. So this is the kind of thing I don't know how, they made it, and then they had to cut it. They cut all the steamy parts out, and actually, what what I like Vinegar Syndrome is they actually provided both versions of the movie. Oh yeah, there's a stud, and this guy, I don't know where they found this guy. He's not the toughest guy in the world. I'll put it that way, but he does what he needs to do with Miss Wyckoff. But it's a very interesting film. It's a movie that's somewhat repressed because it was recut and retitled, and Charles is very high interest to Charles because it has black and white sex and deals with those paradigms of 3D effect kind of things. There's a level of punishment that comes when you cross that color line. So that's a guilty pleasure movie I would highly recommend. The law. I don't want to talk about. I don't. I love Jane Kennedy. I'm a big Jane Kennedy fan. I don't talk about gossip. I talk about movies like Group Marriage, which is Jane Kennedy's first movie. She plays in a couple scenes, and Code Red, our friends at Code Red, put that out. And Code Red also did Devil's Express. And this is one thing I don't like about Code Red. They also put out the other movie, Force 5, was it? I don't have it over there. But there's two movies with Warhawk, um, Tanzania. I don't know who comes up with the name Warhawk Tanzania, but they could have just as easily put both movies on the same disc. There's plenty of space, but they chose to force whatever Warhawk Tanzania fans to double dip and pay double money to get us over. So, shame on you for doing that, but I'm happy that it got restored. Um, if he hollers, let him go, which is the same title as the book, but has nothing to do with the famous book. But it is one of early Barbara McNair, who was a singer, stage act, recorded from Motown, had her own TV series. One of the first people to kind of break through and cross over, and you say, um, Barbara McNair had a TV show the same time Della Reese got a show, and then Lil Falana would later come along, but that was sort of the breakthrough to put black people on TV, and one of the first blacks to appear in Playboy because they took the scenes, the stills from this movie, and put them in Playboy. So um, early entry when they was just starting to push before the R rating comes in, you get Iffy Hollows, Let 'Em Go, and you have, which is ironic, Raymond St. Jock from Cotton Comes to Harlem is the lead, and he's basically on the run from these crooked cops. So it's an interesting film. It doesn't. It's a little tame, because it's still. It's not. It could have. It's a. It, you know. But I'm a completist, so that's why I also have Twilight People with Pam Grier on Blu-ray from VCI, which they shot in the Philippines. Probably a low point on a lot of people's career, but um, pushing genre boundaries for Pam Grier. She's proud of it because she got to stretch her acting muscles and be a monster and do all that kind of stuff. You have to understand a lot of people from the 70s grew up watching these cheesy horror movies and things like that. So the opportunity to be in this or Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde or something like that, it was very appealing. So Twilight People, Black Shampoo, so that's a trend. If there's a successful white movie, prior to porn, which would instantly rip off a title, you'd have black exploitation ripping off titles. So Shampoo made a lot of money in Hollywood, so we got Black Shampoo. Just like The Notebook made a lot of money, so we get The Photograph. So do what you want with that one. This is treasured. These are getting harder to come by. If you grew up in the VCR era, like VHS early 80s, and you lived in a black neighborhood, there's no way that you could escape Black Devil Doll from Hell. It was at every video store, and you'd be like, what is this, right? It's like this cartoon cover, and they couldn't show you the real production value because literally guys shot it with a VCR camera, and there's nudity. It's one of the weirdest movies on earth, and there were rumors for a long time. I thought they shot them in Philly. Because I was like, where'd this come from? A company called City Lights Video used to put it out, and then Tales from the Quality Zone. Actually, let me just give me 1 second. I got more information for you. Hang on. Yikes! Still there? More people. More people. Make sure you have your gloves and wash your hands. So, this is the VHS. I'll give you the visual. I threw it on the floor. Sounds so good. This movie and this movie are the same movie, right? So when this movie first came out on tape, they retitled it and put a different package because they didn't trust that anybody would pay to see it with the original title. So that's a little, and then go on and on and on. But anyway, this um, goes for a lot because there are a lot of horror fans out there that really love their horror movies, and like they'll literally pay $500 for an original tape of Halloween from the original pressing. So this tends to go for a lot because these were basically The guy was sitting in his house dubbing these off. Trust me, he was not putting a lot of money into paying a replicator. He was getting the boxes printed up. It's not even real. It's like flimsy paper. He was doing this on the cheap. But somehow, because it's horror, it got such a reputation that they literally tracked the guy down in his house, 70-year-old guy, and got them restored uh, from the master tapes, which which are the same tapes that were they're selling years ago. They just dubbed them for people so they didn't have to pay a fortune for them. But that's a good movie for a lot of reasons. It's a cult camp classic. Um, yeah, well, you have to remember everything, brother Danubian. Uh, yeah, well, Charles was 43rd chamber. Okay, so moving forward, are we caught up? If uh, Marky Bay, Sugar Hill on Blu-ray. I love Marky Bay. Very interesting. And Don Pedro Colley from THX 1138 is in here. That's Don Pedro. He's on a TV show later also. Big tall black guy. Rest in peace, Don Pedro. And Marky just had a birthday not too long ago. She's still. I don't know. I should call Marky Bain now because her whole job was doing murder mystery tours, and the whole cruise business is shut down. She might have time to be on the show now, but she's always super busy. Us, which this. What can we say about Us? The follow up to Get Out, Jordan Peele, and Cotton Club Encore. Light's weird on this. Which Coppola finally puts on Blu-ray, added scenes that were cut. Of course, with Coppola, you never get the older version. You just get the what he wants you to have. So that's the power of owning your stuff. Streets of Fire, which is one. If you grew up in the MTV era, you'll never forget. I Can Dream About You, which was the very first time that I remember seeing Robert Townsend as an adult. I mean, he's in Cooley High in one scene, but he was one of the uh, doo wop guys that was singing "I Can Dream About You," which is an interesting thing because it was a white guy singing the song, but then in the movie they had black guys miming it, and this is when the first time music video tried to merge with narrative film. So it's Walter Hill who also did 48 Hours, and it was a notorious flop. And still, somehow we ended up with Cop Rock, which was even a bigger flop. I think the issue is at the time, maybe it's different now, but what stimulates your mind with music doesn't necessarily it's a different part of your brain than what movies are doing to you. So it's clever to try to morph the two, but I think it works better when you just take the style of music video and apply it to film, like say a Black Rain or anything that Ridley and Tony Scott ended up doing. Basically, comes from their style of advertising, which influenced music video at that point. They're the you know ground zero for a lot of what of the visual stimulating, and then a lot of the French directors, Luc Besson, things like that. They're really good visual stylists. And then you get to Michael Bay, which is just like too much, Fast and Furious and all that kind of crap. 21 Jump Street, for $4, I can't turn down the complete first season. So, and I don't know if I'm ever going to unwrap this thing, but it's here in the house. This is one I tried to get this up on the channel because it's very generically packaged, but it's also very strongly protected. I mean, maybe other people have tried Passport Video. It's really a good documentary. It's a survey of the history of blacks in TV. And what interested me about it was there's interviews with Paul Mooney and Monique, and I felt that it would do well for folks to see. So if you manage to, if you're like an eBay or Amazon person, this is looks can be deceiving. Sometimes the covers are crappy, but the shows are good. This is actually a really well made show. Um, Speaking of TV shows, you got the Tonight Show, which comes on TV every night. But what's nice about this set, it's the comedy specials. So it's full episodes with commercials included of Steve Martin appearances, Robin Williams appearances, and all the Eddie Murphy appearances on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And the one, there's I think it's three of them. Yeah, 19 January 1st, 1982, February 10th, 1982, and July 30th, 1982. So this is Saturday Night Live Eddie Murphy, but pre 48 Hours Eddie Murphy, and he does the hit by a car bit, which is the first time I saw him do stand up. But that was the second time. I didn't realize that until this. That was really the second time he did stand up on the show. So to me, as an Eddie Murphy fan, that was a must have. And then also as a fan of comedy, Eddie's on this. Pretty much, I think the full episode of Eddie on Dick Cavett is on YouTube now. But this is this is how clever they are. They put all the black comedians on one disc, which is the way you should do it. Save money, and then they have a disc that has like George Carlin and Steve Martin, all those guys on another disc. But it's great because Dick Cavett again owns the rights to all his material, so he can not only go from his 70s, 60s series that was on ABC and give you really early interviews with Red Fox and Dick Gregory, but he can go to his later 80s incarnation when he was on cable TV. This interview with Richard Pryor is really great because they have a full hour and they're friends. So you see really the nature of their friendship. And because they have an hour, Richard is, he doesn't have to be on. It's a very, very special interview with him. And then the same, I think the Eddie Murphy interview for an hour, I wanted it to be better, but I think, and you see it also with Johnny Carson. I think the most offensive question that somebody could ask a black celebrity is, "What are you going to do with the money now that you're rich?" You know, and that seems to be the angle that both Dick Cavett and Johnny Carson deal with Eddie Murphy. I mean, it was unprecedented superstardom, but it's also I've never seen Jim Carrey be asked that question. So I think it's a patently offensive thing to ask, and for that to carry the message the whole hour. But and you'll see on YouTube like Cavett wants Eddie to be part of a shtick, and Eddie's like, I'm not going for that. He's like, bring in Uncle Ray, let him do that. So Eddie was very savvy from the beginning. There's certain things he wasn't going to do for folks. He's very, very, very savvy. Um, Trick Baby, Willie Dynamite, and That Man Bolt. Three Universal movies. What's great about this set for under $10? You get two movies on this one, and then you get all of Willie Dynamite on a second disc. So, sometimes you have to be careful. They'll crunch three movies onto a disc, and it doesn't quite work. Um, this I jumped on because I was just reading things. I was doing research. The early films of William Ferris. I'm trying to get into it. I gotta get into my blues bag. This might be something to put on while music is playing and just watch the visuals. But there is a market for these kind of things. Dust to digital, and they also do music reissues. So I would recommend that. The White Shadow, yeah, those are out 2 seasons. Thank you, Rosalind. Yeah, New York Undercover. We're working on getting some New York undercovers for people to see. Ganja and Hess Blu-ray. I have like two or three versions of this. This is one of these movies that everybody loves but nobody gets. It's like it's sort of certain movies when it was scarce to have black independent film were pushing boundaries. And to my taste, I understand exactly what it's trying to do. To me, it's not successful, and Bill Gunn is from Philly. I've really tried to get into him. It's just maybe I need to live another 10 years to completely understand it. And then that was also notoriously remade by Spike Lee as "Da Sweet Love of Jesus." So it's an interesting vampire movie, but from an intellectual standpoint, it is also on the National Registry for decades. It was hard to find. It was cut and recut, and so it was restored. And that edition has commentary from my friend David Walker. Catch My Soul with the late great Richie Havens. So, opera adaptation of Shakespeare's Othello, starring Richie Havens. So this is one reason to love Vinegar Syndrome is that they really seek out they dig hard not only to find the harder to find movies but to restore them. And even if they are not able to find the original elements, it doesn't stop them from putting some version of it out in its best quality. So, like when they did the Mothers, it was actually the print they used for the Mothers with Jane Kennedy was worse than the one they used for the VHS. But it is on Blu-ray finally. Pardon me. Um, yeah, Trick Baby is one of my favorite movies. The Inkwell, I can't speak as highly for. That is on Blu-ray now. I think when I was in LA at Amoeba, I had the opportunity to buy the Inkwell, and I just couldn't bring myself to it. I'm sorry, Matty Rich. I'm sorry. Uh, yeah, we're trying to get more Amos and Andy's together to put up. Uh, the time is now. That's it's not on DVD. We were lucky to get it off the air. I mean, there are collectors that have the Name of the Game TV series available, but it's never been properly released, and that's why we chose to put it up. I like, and Yaffet, he says it's one of his favorite performances as a player's interview. Actually, this oddball stuff here. Hang on. This is I was in storage. Yaffet. So this isn't the interview. I can't show you this. Well, I can't show you that. Certainly can't show you that. I forget what movie this was. I think it's Action Jackson's movie. Still, he didn't walk around like this in public. Close, but not exactly. That's a little extra for Yaffet. But the previous, I think he did at least two interviews. There's another issue of Players where Yaffet was rambling on about stuff, and he was saying that the times now was one of the things that he really took pride in being able to play that character. And then it's just going back, for people who remember the source. So I wish I'd been more diligent buying these things at the time. I tried to read them all, but at the time, like you'd miss them. I didn't have a subscription. $2.95. This would go for a lot now because people. But this is a historic issue because it is. I think Nas had the first. Correct me. You got a lot of people watching. Nas review is in here for Illmatic, and I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. This might be the first 5 mic review of the source. So I know this is a collector's item for a lot of people just on that. So I was like, okay, I got to reread that. But I think it's the first 5 mic, but Nomadic 1994, April 1994. But yeah, somebody do some research, find out. Like if I'm ever in a jam, that'll have to I'll be on go on auction. Angels Can't Help But Laugh. Terry Vaughn from the Steve Harvey Show made a documentary about her sisters who were trying to make movies in Hollywood and how difficult it is as a black woman to be a filmmaker. And this was Terry's story. She got a lot of her friends to be in it. Um, I found this on Amazon. It looks like she pressed it herself, but it's. I think somebody said something on Instagram made me seek it out. Um, this was really good because Solomon Burke is from Philly, and didn't. I'm a Solomon Burke fan, but I didn't have that much information. So what again, British people, filmmakers did. They followed him around. This guy literally lived right down the street from me at one point, and I didn't think to do it, but they followed him around for a week. They went to his house in Los Angeles. They brought him back to Philly, and then they talked to a lot of his contemporaries. Of course, they didn't quite have the real budget. They got Bill Wyman of the Rolling Stones to talk about how Mick Jagger ripped him off. But at least there's one Rolling Stone in there to endorse the legacy of Solomon Burke. But you can only take it so far. You can only send so many letters. So, but it's a good. If you don't know Solomon Burke, it's a really good documentary. It's a very good portrait. The Intruder. The only reason I own this is because we were set up to do an interview with the director, Dion Taylor, and I wanted something for him to sign. I like Dion Taylor, but I could have saved this money because he ended up canceling the trip. It's an interesting movie. I think he knows it's intentionally designed to be like bad. I hope. It's never gonna make anybody's best list, but everybody seems to be having fun with it, and I actually prefer the movie he was coming to Philly to discuss more. I think if you follow Dion, he's had an interesting career where he's worked his way up from indie into the mainstream, and now he has a resource of funding, sort of like Mark Harris in Chicago, where they have reliable funding now or distribution systems, and now their work is being seen more. And but that Black and Blue, that movie, that there were a lot of movies that were a reaction to Black Lives Matter. That Black and Blue movie with Tyrese was the only one that I felt it was worth the money to pay for in the theater. So shout out to Dion Taylor. Oh, speaking about racial injustice, The People versus Paul Crump is a very interesting documentary. If you like um, 60s, just the feel of documentary and all this stuff, this is William Friedkin's very first movie. And actually, when I was in Chicago, I met William Friedkin. They made a documentary about William Friedkin, and I got him this. It's called Friedkin Uncut, and he signed my ticket. So, and I was hoping to get the cinematographer of this movie, Bill Butler, who shot Bingo Long and Anaconda and Jaws, to sign this for me as well. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's a very interesting film. It's one of the first cinema verite documentaries. It was made for television in Chicago. It's about a real person named Paul Crump who's convicted of a crime, and some Catholic priests, I believe, were trying to get him out of prison, and this film actually got him emancipated. So it's one of if you look at justice and criminal justice, this is a touchstone. It's a very crucial piece of history, the power of movies to affect change, to speak truth to power. So, and I believe Paul continued to have a productive life afterwards, if I'm not mistaken. But it's more so was the launching pad for Friedkin, who went on to make The Exorcist and French Connection and all that stuff. And because he started with documentary, he brought a whole new style and flair to American film. So it's an important film on those levels. Um, I think Black and Blue did what it was supposed to do. I mean, I think this is going to be very interesting now. Nothing's doing anything at the box office, so it's all everything's relative. Um, you have to look in relative to budget and marketing costs before you say something did well or didn't do well. Ultimately, all these movies end up doing better on video in the long run. And what I like about where Dion is at, he kind of took it's almost like you graduate. It's He's working at Screen Gems now, and they have a certain formula in terms of how they market black movies and what the poster needs to be and who the cast needs to be and what the budget needs to be. And all of that was sort of Will Packer building that, at Screen Gems, going from independent films. He got an opportunity to work at Columbia, and they were putting out two movies a year with basically the same formula. Um, Genre pictures with two black leads, and he did that for 5 or 6 years until Kevin Hart came along, and now he's applied that same mathematics but to comedy, and he's made $1 billion already at Universal because Universal just markets things more, you know. So it's nice to see those doors still open and certain things can operate in terms of creating opportunities for people to do things. And what's interesting about The Intruder, Megan Good and Michael Ealy, they were producers on that movie. So, they might not command a big price tag, but they get to take home a lot more money because, you know, we there is a sense of what we will go to support. Okay, stop with the. All right, I'm gonna stay on that. Basquiat, Downtown '81. I'm really getting into Basquiat. I have this on VHS, that's why it's sealed. But this was like $6 on Amazon at one point. I don't know if it still is. Sometimes they print too many copies, so it's like they can't. They have two choices: either sell it to you cheap or shred it. So it's good that it's environment. I'll open it up right now. Environmentally safe. I need to get Cane River come this for my oscilloscope, but I got to watch it first. But it's Basquiat. So if you're a fan, you're gonna want the book with the rare photos and the history and all that stuff. They also did Wild Style, the same company, but I think they might have overestimated the appeal because this literally was $6 when I bought it. So, um, and it's an interesting film. Again, it's something they shot, and after he died, somebody said, "Oh, remember that movie we shot with Basquiat? Can we do it?" And they lost all the sound rolls. So they actually had to go and recreate all of the audio for the movie in order to release it. And unfortunately, they lost Basquiat's audio recording. So, if you believe like there's a genie out there, maybe it's intentional, but um, there are, Basquiat film and video is very, very scarce. There's very few things. TV Party was a public access show that Basquiat and Fab Freddy, all the New York downtown underground people were a part of, and it's one of the few places you get to see him talking. And then I wish to God they would put Andy Warhol's interview TV series out. That was another public access show that was hosted by Andy Warhol, and he did it for 2 or 3 years, but it was only really seen in New York. If you're outside of New York, I don't know where you would find a copy. Um, but I happened to see a few episodes in at the Paley Museum, and I'm like, wow, this I don't know what the rights are, but this would be prime to make available to people. So Star Wars, that's another one from our friends at Music Video Distributors. Uh, Wildstone. Oh God, do I have to delete somebody? Block brother. Okay. All right. Keep it together. Um, Almost done. Party Justice on Blu-ray. Rest in peace, John Singleton. This I picked up in L.A. I'm just waiting for the right time. I should have watched it on the 20th, right? This would have been the thing. The Bob Marley live in Boston uh, CD, but then somebody filmed a few of the songs from that show, and because it's Bob Marley and they have money and power, they're able to take the few songs that were fan shot and match them to the audio from the night. So, got to get this spliff. Uh, okay, this is work. I'll save that. Uh, Twilight Time, which is Screen Archives Entertainment on um, Archives Entertainment. They I believe to the end of the month are having a sale. A lot of their Blu-rays that they price normally at $30 are $15 or less. So whenever they have a sale, I jump on it. This I didn't buy anything this particular sale, but the incident is one. I think there's a good print on YouTube. It's an interesting film. It's like these guys basically take hostage a New York subway car, and it's like a scene, like make a great double feature with Dutchman. But there's a sequence in there with Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. They're one of the people that are trapped, being held hostage by these juvenile delinquents, and you know, it's of course a black man can't stand up for himself, but I like anything Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. L-shaped room. It's a British film, one of the first films that deal with homosexuality, and it has a role in there by Brock Peters. So that's why I grabbed that. I think it's on YouTube as of today. Remember the Wedding is 1950, and it's been done a couple times, I believe, but Ethel Waters is in this version, and I'm not quite sure why they chose that cover, but it's based on a famous play. This, if you're going to spend money, get this before it's gone. To Serve with Love Blu-ray, it has an interview with E.R. Braithwaite talking about what inspired him to write the original book and the differences between the book and the movie. And this is Charles Wood's favorite movie of all time. And it's one of these movies. Have you ever seen it? All right, hang on. You gotta go. You can't come in here with this crap. Come on, stop. What am I doing?